For him, sex is like a meal, okay? It's like a really good pizza.
Yeah.
And maybe add a beer to it, okay? He's happy. If he have a pizza and a beer, some might say, no, it's more like a steak and lobster dinner, whatever. So if you think about it, how many meals in a day would a man need to feel full, to feel fulfilled, to feel satisfied?
Welcome to the Danielle Hage Podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Hage. Danielle is my mother-in-law and Nini to my 3 girls. She is pastor, speaker, and founder of Dynamic Traits. She has over 40 years experience in family and marriage relationships. She's been married for 43 years to Steve Hage, who travels the world preaching the gospel, and together they pastor a church in Laguna Niguel, California. So I'm excited for today's episode. We're talking about how men relate to sex.
Yes.
We've talked a little bit before about how women relate to sex and how to get the best from them in the bedroom. But today we're specifically talking about how men relate to sex because it is different than how women relate to sex. And I think I've had several conversations with friends and colleagues, and it's like, oh my gosh, okay, he just needs it, wants it. Why doesn't he understand? I'm not really into it. So can you tell us a little bit about what's going on between men and women?
Well, I think that so many questions about men can be answered if women understand how they value and view and look at sex. And again, we're different people and we have different hormones, and it has so much to do with hormones. But first of all, we need to understand that when it comes to sex, women need attention and they need affection.
Yeah.
Men just need intercourse.
Yeah.
Okay? That bottom line. Okay, if we want to just bring it all the way down to the bottom line. To a man, this is how he looks at sex. For him, sex is like a meal. Okay? It's like a really good pizza.
Yeah.
And maybe add a beer to it. Okay? He's happy. If he have a pizza and a beer, some might say, no, it's more like a steak and lobster dinner, whatever. So if you think about it, how many meals in a day would a man need to feel full, to feel fulfilled, to feel satisfied?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 meals a day, right, for a man to feel satisfied. Some men need 5 meals a day. Some men can eat 2 meals a day, whatever it is. So so for women, we might say, 3 is average for them. So if he were to equate food to sex, he would need 3 rounded meals a day. And for women, we're like, wait, what? You're hungry again? I just fed you last week.
Yeah.
But for a man, if he doesn't have sex, he's starving.
Yeah.
Like he is depleted. He's hungry. He's famished. He's starving. So maybe he doesn't need it 3 times a day. But for a man, he could. Yeah. He could have it 3 times a day and be completely content with that.
Yeah.
So, and then for women, we tend to put stipulations on sex. It's like, well, take me on a romantic date. Romance me a little bit. Get me in the mood. Buy me a present. Talk to me. Listen to me. We put those little stipulations. The desire for sex has everything to do with hormones. Yeah. And as we know, testosterone is what drives the sexual need for a man. And a man has way more, I think it's 16 times more testosterone than women. And again, it's unique to each man and each woman. But for a man, he can reproduce 24/7. And he is in the mood to reproduce, generally speaking, 24/7. Yeah. But for a woman, because of the way our cycles are, we might feel like having sex maybe 30 hours a month. Yeah. Meaning 1 or 2 days in, depending on our cycles in a month, we'd be happy with that. So
it's one of my favorite things that I've been learning about recently, just in this perimenopause age and dealing with some endometriosis and stuff, just the difference between testosterone and estrogen. So what I'm hearing you say is, testosterone reboosts every 24 hours. And I'm learning that their cyclical cycle is 24 hours, whereas a woman's cycle of estrogen is different each 4 weeks of the month. And so she cycles every 28 to 30 days. Right. And so it's like women really only crave that that need for sex. Yeah. 2 days to 2 weeks tops out of the month. Right. And the estrogen is the connection hormone. Right. Whereas men, they don't have so much estrogen. What drives them is testosterone. And that's just about getting fed, like you said.
And the testosterone is the thing that keeps them focused. It's what makes them single focused. It's what drives them. It's the very
Gives
thing
them the competitive edge in the marketplace.
Makes them want to go to work, and make money. Yeah. So as we know, testosterone has been wreaking havoc on the male biology for thousands and thousands of years. And it all begins at puberty. And I always like to use this analogy. I heard this and I thought it made so much sense, and maybe it will help women to understand what's happening in a man's body. Yeah. So if testosterone were beer, a 9-year-old boy would be getting about the equivalent of a cup a day at 9 years old, a cup of beer. Now, can you imagine what that would look like on a 9-year-old that has never tasted alcohol, and all of a sudden a cup is being going through his bloodstream? But at 15 years old, it would be the equivalent of him getting nearly 2 gallons of beer through his bloodstream. In a day. Can you imagine that? So you can't fault them for being into women's appearance and looking. And I mean, they can't help but notice female body parts. It's part of their biology. It's part of their makeup. You can't get mad at them for that. It's not personal to you because he is noticing, and it starts at, let's say 11, 12, 13 and moving up. So the sex conflict, it's nothing new. I mean, this has been around as long as we've all been alive. Yeah. But if women can understand men's design and what's going on in a man's body, then maybe we can cut them a little bit of slack. Yeah. All right. And we have to understand too that men, the way they see sex is the foundation of the relationship, the whole foundation. Right. And that's why they can't help it. I mean, yes, they want it. They need it. And then women will complain, is that all you want me for? Is that all you want me for? Am I just a sex object to you? And, yes, women want sex too. Of course, we want sex too, but we also want other things like romance and conversation and connection to the man, which makes us more ready and more available to actually have sex. And not to mention, help around the house and help with the kids. That all helps too. So again, women can reproduce about 30 hours a month, which means that she's not horny all the time like a man. A man is horny from the age of, from the time he hits puberty
9 years old
to 80 years old.
Yeah.
But women, it's again a couple of days in a month, depending on her cycle. Right. So, and she needs to have plenty of oxytocin. That isn't the bonding hormone. They call the sex hormone or the love hormone. She needs to have enough oxytocin in her body to even have a desire for sex. And women seem to run out of oxytocin, especially if they're stressed. Stress levels, high stress will deplete her oxytocin. Yeah. And men don't run out of it as fast as women. So men, and the thing about oxytocin, and this is for the guys to know, that if you want your woman to have lots of oxytocin, because again, it's what gets her, in the mood for sex, anything that feels pampering to a woman will boost her oxytocin levels. Her being around and talking and having girls' days and girls' trips and time with the girls because they're listening, they're talking, there's a good exchange there. Getting her hair done, her nails, her makeup done, getting a massage, a foot rub, anything that feels like she's being taken care of or pampered, an exercise class with a bunch of other people, but other women, yoga and Pilates, all those things actually boost her oxytocin levels. Right. So as a man, encourage her to do those things, to exercise and to be have her women friends, because it's going to be better for you guys in the end. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, so men need sex. And women have the place where sex happens. I like to call it the palace, all right? So you might say, well, they can do other things to take the edge off. And yes, they can do other things. But most men will say that doing other things to relieve their sex drive or their need does not compare to making love to a woman.
Well, especially if what you said is true, that men view sex with their spouse as the foundation of the relationship. Yeah. And if you're allowing that foundation to shift and be taken care of somewhere else, then that's going to erode at the relationship and erode at her wanting to have sex, because how she relates to sex is through the connection, feeling cherished, feeling cared for. And so that's where some of these connection issues really do break down.
And I would say to the women, yes, okay, so you're thinking, okay, well, I only need it 1 or 2 days a week and he needs it all the time. So there's the conflict right there. But as, I know for my husband, and because I'm married to a man that travels a lot and has always, pretty much our whole marriage, I never wanted to send him out empty. I never wanted him to leave the house for a few days starving sexually.
Yeah.
To me, it's like my responsibility in this marriage is to make sure he's satisfied and he's full.
Yeah.
And I want to give him that. I might not be in the mood for it, but I want to meet that need in him, just like he wants to meet my needs. And if we're in a partnership, we're in a relationship, you're married, why wouldn't you want to meet your partner's need?
Yeah.
Why would, it's not right for me to be selfish and just go, I'm not in the mood. Take care of yourself. No. And I don't want him to running into any temptation out there in the world. And how many of you know there is a lot of temptation out there? Lots of beautiful women everywhere you go, and very handsome men also. But I don't want him to go out there feeling like he's starving and he needs to have sex. I want him to know that I'm filled up, he's filled up, and he's got something waiting for him when he gets home. Yeah. So I do whatever I need to do to make sure I'm in that position to meet his need. Yeah. And it's called self-sacrifice. It's called being selfless. Yeah, I may not always be into it as much as him, but understanding the male biology, I want to make sure he's full. Yeah. So for women that say, well, I'm just not into it, get into it. To me, there's no excuse. Get into it and meet your man's need so that another woman doesn't have to.
Yeah. I recently read that a couple ways to stimulate this testosterone is in the morning to say, tonight's going to be a great night. Put that in his head, because men are single focused. That testosterone helps them to be single focused. So they're single focused when they go to work to protect and provide and go and challenge and all that.
Compete and conquer. Yeah.
You have them thinking about you all day long because you've put that in their ear. Yeah. And so beautiful women can walk by, the secretary, but they're not going to notice any of that because you have given them something to focus on.
To look forward to.
When they come home. But it does not work in reverse. When a man says that to a woman, she's going to be like, nope, I will not be home tonight. I'm going to be asleep before you go to bed. But the words he can use is, I choose you. I cherish you.
I love that.
I always choose you. You are the one. I chose you. I will continue to choose you. Right. And that connection, and that will start to get her going, boost that oxytocin during the day. But if we can stimulate his testosterone by being his biggest fan, by cheerleading him on, that makes him feel good. It makes him feel like the man.
Yes.
And I think for us too, when I'm able to do that, to speak to that, I mean, it does something for me. It gets me going. Right. And it makes me feel good when I can send him out and he's well taken care of. Yeah. And in reverse too, not creating conflict when he comes home, not fighting him when he comes home. Right. Because the testosterone is that conflicting, it can be aggressive, right? An aggressive hormone. And we don't want to challenge that when they come home. We want to be able to curb that in the right way.
Which is why women need to, because when you're, we talk a lot about masculine, feminine energy, and we're going to do a whole podcast on it at another time. But like when he's gone and you're ruling the roost, you're taking care of the kid, you're calling the shots, you're producing, you're, picking up and doing whatever it is. Or maybe you work a full-time job. Maybe you're not a stay-at-home mom. You work a full-time job and you have to pick the kids up on the way home or whatever. So you're in your masculine energy too. When you're out in the workforce, the work arena, you are in your masculine energy. But if you want your man to be his most masculine self, you cannot buck up against his masculinity when you both come home. You've got to change back into a woman and get your feminine energy on. Yeah. And the way that you do that, we've talked about this in other podcasts, is by, changing your clothes, changing your attitude, that you're not in charge anymore. You were in charge at work or you were in charge of the kids at home, but now you're going to let him be the man, let him call the shots, let him lead, and you're going to be the more of the responder, the receiver, and let him be the giver. The giver is the masculine, the receiver is the feminine. I know there's a lot of women that say, it's really hard to go back into that feminine mode when I come home from work. That's why you need to do whatever it takes. It might be taking a shower, taking a bath, putting on some lipstick. Yes, I'm not saying you have to dress up and wear heels at home or anything like that, but whatever you need that makes you feel like a woman. It might be just putting on some music, setting the environment, lighting some candles, and having that zone out time where you just get to have a few minutes by yourself. And there's been a lot of controversy about that, about transition time. And we did another podcast on that, about how men need about 30 minutes to kind of transition from work to home. And women need that time too, but women, because of the way our brains are set up, seem to be able to transition faster than a man. Now, if you are a woman that has a lot of masculine energy, it might take you more time. I know one couple where the man says, oh no, my wife needs more time, more zone out time, more transition time when she gets home than I do. Yeah. And he has a lot of feminine energy, very much a man, but has more feminine energy. Great. Whatever your arrangement is, just knowing one another and knowing what you need and being willing to give each other that makes for a great relationship and a great connection. So everybody's got needs, and there is a way for everybody to get their needs met, okay? Yeah. Maybe not every day perfectly, but at least knowing that we are concerned about one another. We want to do our best to try to meet one another's needs. Just knowing that your husband is interested and your wife is interested, rather than like, forget it. Nope, not into it tonight, not going to do it. And, it's all about your disposition, your attitude.
I think understanding how men relate to sex helps me. It's almost like have more empathy. Realize that he's not using me. He's not using my body, and you've talked about this before. For women, they don't need to have the full production several nights a week. They don't need to necessarily have an orgasm every time they have sex. That's not a need of ours. Whereas for a man, it is. It can physically hurt if they don't. So sometimes being okay and having that, communication before you get to the bedroom, like, tonight's for you, honey.
Yeah,
if you just need to get
you.
Do what you got to do if you need to get off, and
take turns. Like tonight, it's your night. You don't even have to do anything. I'm going to do the work, and then the next time it's her night. And then usually when people will say it's going to be all for you, or I'll just use my own example, then the other person gets so into it too, because when it's all for you, it's nice. And so you can't help but giving back. Yeah. You can't help. You want to give back because you're getting so much satisfaction. Yeah. So.
And we've talked recently too, I think for women, especially if you have children at home, you're giving. Your work is longer than before sunup.
Right. You never clock
sundown.
out.
Yeah, you never clock down. So for women too, and we've gone back and we've really drilled down into how to get our own needs met.
Yes.
And I think for me, I have boundaries around what I need for me every day to have a little bit of overflow, to be able to give back.
Right.
It's like sucking the oxygen out of my being if I don't have that hour of, for me, it's working out, and alone time, and having that space where I can just put in my AirPods and do my workout. And Christian's been so good ever since we've had children of making sure I get that hour or two every single day, because otherwise I'm just completely depleted. But really, for a woman, being able to identify what that is, so you can give to the man
so you have
every
some
day
leftover
who's
energy.
Resetting every single day and putting boundaries. Yeah. This is for me, but it's really for me, so I can give back.
Right. And maybe for a woman who is running around with kids and maybe working part-time or full-time, and you might your marriage is the most important relationship. Yeah. Your marriage connection is more important than how much money you make. Sometimes you've got to learn to live within your means. You might not be able to, have all the stuff, but you've got to be able to be there for your kids, and you've got to be able to be there for your husband. So there might be some areas you have to pull back. Yeah. I can't do it all. Yeah. I can't do everything I want to do. And my kids can't be in every single sport they want to be in, because I need to have some leftover energy for my marriage. And that you've got to make that a priority. Your husband cannot be on the bottom of the totem pole of priorities, because he's important, and you've got to keep that that nurturing and that connection alive with your husband. You can't just let it go by the wayside. And ladies, you need to know too that the female body actually feeds a man physically, spiritually, and emotionally. You have a lot of power, ladies. You have a lot of power. For a man, it transforms his life. Just, and that's the way God created us, for men and women to go together. So women have something men need. And for a man, they think that, women have something men need. And to them, it looks like they have nothing that we need, especially when they're thinking about sex. And what that does in a relationship, it actually creates an adversarial relationship because of dependency. We are dependent on one another. And the more dependent you are on another person, the more antagonistic the relationship. If you think about children and their parents' relationship, it's very adversarial because kids are dependent on mom and dad for protection and provision, and we are dependent on our children to behave in public and to be kind and use their manners, right? And just like a boss, an employer and an employee, adversarial relationship. That's why there's sometimes conflict there, because the employee is dependent on a paycheck. The employer is dependent on producing from the employee, right? So adversarial means that we're enemies. It means that we are bucking up against each other. And so sometimes people will use manipulation and try to strategize of how they can get what they need from one another. And again, that adversarial part of us, antagonistic part of us, it's all based in our natural man, our human flesh, okay? But marriage and partnership and connection comes from our human spirit. So everybody's got both sides. They've got their flesh man and they've got their spirit man. So we have to choose to behave from our human spirit. And, I think this is interesting too, that, when we were talking about men and how, they have such a need sexually, and a lot of times they can't even help but look at someone of the opposite sex, right? And how this seems like an insult to women. But it even says in the Old Testament where Job, in the book of Job the man was described by God as one of the finest men in all of the earth. He was a man of complete integrity. And he said, I make a covenant with my eyes not to look with lust upon a young woman. That's Job 1:8. And, you would think surely the finest, most integrous man in all of the world at that time would not struggle with the temptation to notice or look at other women. But it's right there. Even in the Old Testament where it's like, I try not to even look. And I want women to understand, because this also has been very controversial on my social media page of men. I say men can't help it. And again, because of their biological makeup. Yes, they can override their genetic makeup, but every now and then they get, distracted and a beautiful woman walks by and they notice. His noticing another woman and his temptation to notice has absolutely nothing to do with his feelings for you. Okay,
because we're still talking about a man having integrity.
Yes, doesn't mean he loves you any less.
He's not going to go chase it.
Especially
if you put those words into his ears when he leaves in the morning. Tonight's going to be a great night. He will still be focused on you. Yeah,
when you get home tonight. All right, but just know that all men have that vulnerability, and most men say they wish they could turn it off. Like it embarrasses them. They don't want to be, when I say notice other women, again, I just cannot emphasize this enough. I am not giving permission or license for men to lust at women, to drool over women. No. I'm not saying that that's okay. Men can control that. Yes. They do have the control. Yes. But every now and then, when they get distracted, sometimes they can't help but notice.
They notice beauty.
And that's innocent. That is innocent. That is not a personal hit to you. Although some ladies feel like that's disrespectful. Okay, yes, if they're lusting, okay, that's one thing, but not just a glance or a notice. They can't help it. Yeah. So you got to give them a break. Not all men are nasty, dirty, or perverts because they notice pretty women, okay? Yes, there's some men out there like that, but most men are not that way. Those are the exceptions to the rule. All right, what else? Oh, so this is what I wanted to say also. So things have changed. 70 years ago, life was more balanced, where men controlled 100% of the purse, of the money, because women were at home, men were working. This is way back, all right, in the 50s and 60s. But women held 100% of the palace,
Yeah.
the place where sex happens. Okay, so there was a trade, right? Men went to work, and the trade was, we'll get married, and he can get sex from you, and you're going to get provision from him. But today, life is out of balance. It is all out of balance because of a woman's independence and her self-sufficiency. Everything has been thrown out of balance, okay? Because now women are working. Now women have full-time jobs. Now women own their own businesses. They're the CEOs of companies. Yeah. So they're working as hard.
They're having babies without
as men.
Husbands.
And
not without husbands, but without a man.
Yeah, having their own kids without having, adopting kids without men, which that is I have a totally different, another opinion on that, but I'm not going to get into that because that'll be controversial. But notice that now, in these days, women control a huge percentage of the purse because they're working and still control 100% of the palace.
Right.
So that makes women really powerful.
Super powerful. Yeah.
You have a lot of power. So what does this mean? You can use that power to emasculate men, which isn't going to work out well for you, or you can use it to empower men.
Yeah.
So just know, you just need to be aware of the power you have. And men need you.
Yeah.
Men do need women because, yes, I mean, you're working as hard as a man, but you're still a woman, and you have something that men want and need that will renew him and refresh his life. Yeah. So just be aware of that.
Well, and we enhance. And they want that. Their masculinity craves our femininity.
Yes.
We enhance them. We can speak to that masculinity in them. We can speak to that testosterone in them to use it for good. Right. Like you said, it's aggressive and it could be lustful, but men under control, men under spiritual leadership as well, will use it for good, and we want them to use it for good.
To protect
they crave coming home to the feminine who is providing a peaceful resting place, providing a peaceful home, and able to enhance what they have to offer.
That's right. So if your attitude is, what do we need men for? Because you can make it on your own today without a man. We can take care of ourselves. No wonder so many men are losing the inspiration to actually cherish a woman and to want to protect and provide for her, if the attitude coming from that whole feminist movement is, what do we need men for anymore? And we can do everything ourselves. But again, why would you want to? Why would you want to? I can do plenty by myself, but I like that my husband treats me like a lady. I like being the queen. I like being provided for. Yes, I can make money. Yes, I can do some of the manly things, but I don't want to. I want to be a woman. I like having my door open for me and my chair pulled out for me, and being treated like the feminine energy. That's what I want. Yeah. And today's women can choose. You can choose. Do you want to be the feminine in the relationship? Because we both have both. We have feminine and masculinity in both of us. I mean, in both the husband and the wife. So for a lady, you have to decide, do you want to be the feminine or do you want to be the masculine? If you want to be the feminine, then you need to be the girl and let him be the man. Be the receiver, be the responder. Right. Not always have to solve every problem. Allow him. The more feminine you are, the more masculine he can be.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so we've talked so much today about how men relate to sex, a little bit about how women relate to sex, testosterone, estrogen, masculinity, femininity, a lot of incredible information. But what do we do with this? Yeah. What do we take away to really just, at the end of the day, enhance our relationships with one another?
Well, in my experience, when I've had these kinds of conversations with women, just becoming aware. A lot of times, just an awareness causes change. Change comes naturally because, I didn't realize that what a need sex was for men, because we relate to our needs the way, and we relate to their needs the way we relate to our needs. So because it's not as big a deal for women, and again, because of hormones, we just being aware of what is going on in a man's body. For women, it seems to give them more compassion for men. Yeah. It's like, okay, so it's not like he just wants to use me. Yeah. It's that he has a need. And as his wife, I want to do to the best of my ability to meet that need. Yeah. Are we going to do it perfectly? No. But if you want to have that romantic fairy tale marriage, that you just have to be willing to do your part. And again, of course, the man has to do his part too. It takes two. It's not all one-sided. Yeah. It's not the woman just, doing it regardless of how she feels.
No, but we've just talked so much about in previous podcasts for women, what women need. Right. So this one really is just the other side of the coin, so women can have more understanding.
Right. And hopefully with men gaining a better understanding about women and women getting a better understanding about men will bring them together. Yeah. Where when you love somebody, you want to do whatever it takes. Yeah. Whatever it takes. And everybody's tired. Life's tough all around. And everybody's got their responsibilities. But at some point, we have to decide what the most important thing is. Yeah. And if to you, the most important thing is staying married and having a long-term, satisfying, fulfilling marriage. Not just to stay married for the heck of it, but because of what it does for you, what it does for your children, to be able to keep each other edified and lifted and however we can do that depending on one another's needs.
Yeah. So these are just more tools for our toolbox. I think every time we kind of end talking about the communication too, when we have the tools of understanding how a man relates to sex, as a woman, then we can appeal to that. When we're talking to them, when we're able to speak their language or hear what they're saying through their filter of how they relate, we can have more understanding and say, oh, okay, you don't realize, like, this is how I'm feeling right now. I need this and this and this, and then be able to negotiate, communicate, figure it out from there.
And I think when each gender gets their needs met in a relationship, they're more, each person is more than willing to do their part. I have said that men, if a woman would just, if women, feed their man, show respect and appreciation to their man, give them good loving, they'll be putty in your hands. Yes. And when I've said that, men say that's exactly it. We want to love our women. We want to cherish them, but and we want to be cherished. So we just both have to do our part. That's all.
Fill each other's buckets.
Yes, exactly.
So good. So good. Well, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, share it, hit the notification bell so you know when a new episode is coming your way. And it helps us if you leave a comment or any questions you have down below. Make sure you check out Danielle on Instagram and Facebook.